Did it start recording? There. That's what I was waiting for. The recording in progress. Welcome everybody to the Salesforce Business Analyst virtual meeting. I guess it's not a, well, I guess it is virtual meeting. Good to see everybody. We've got folks in from Mexico, from Santa Monica, from Montana, London, Kenya. Very excited to see everybody here to our session on from saying yes to asking why. Just in case anybody is interested, the Badass BA logo is courtesy of Shirtforce, which does some cool shirts that go to charity that are kind of like Salesforce related. All right. Moving on with our session, we're going to start with some housekeeping items. First is if folks could go on mute, please. And Pay, I think you should be able to mute all if we need. Well, I guess there's, but just don't let me go. The meeting will be recorded, edited, and posted on YouTube. So just be mindful of that when you've got cameras on, or if there's anything particular that you want to say. We're not really going to be able to go in and specifically edit out anything that you say during the recorded portion of this. Chat, and we'll do our best to keep up. And also, it's not to say like don't chat. Like we want to hear from you guys, and certainly if you have something to say, we want to hear it. Use emojis wisely. Don't spam. Raise your hand if you want to speak. You should be able to raise your hand using the Zoom controls on the bottom. But stay on mute unless called. That way we can, keep things moving since we have a pretty tight agenda today and hopefully a lot to share with all of you. All right, so into that agenda, we're going to do some introductions so you know who the heck I am and our speaker and my co-lead. We're going to go into from saying yes to asking why, which will be led by Tracy Greene. We're going to talk about 10 questions to ask when somebody asks that age-old question, can you add a field? Talk through some Salesforce business analyst news and opportunities, and at the end of the hour, we will shut off the recording and kind of leave it open for some chit chat. I know we had some chit chat at the beginning before things got started, but would love to have folks, hang out if you want to network, talk about any accomplishments, talk about Dreamforce plans, whatever that might be 30 minutes after, or you can peace out if you'd like. All right. So to introduce myself, my name is Vanessa Grant. I am one of the co-leaders of this group. Hashtag BABA for Badass BA. I'm 10 times Salesforce certified with 14 years experience in the Salesforce ecosystem. I've been a Scrum Master, a lead BA, a user experience designer. There was that one year I was a solution architect, which is a little weird, but I've been a consultant, product owner, a whole bunch of things in the Salesforce ecosystem. I'm also the co-host of the Salesforce Career Show, but I think most importantly, I love business analysis and I love championing it within the Salesforce ecosystem. So happy to be here today and very, very glad to welcome Pei-Man Lim as our new co-leader. I had our first session back in February and then hit a horrific bit of burnout and didn't have a session for many months, which is why it's taken me until August to get this going. And huge credit to Pei for getting me in gear and being really that support that I needed. So super excited to welcome Pei into the fold, and we're really hoping to have sessions monthly now in different time zones that would be convenient to the US and the UK. I guess I'll point out if folks could keep on mute if and raise your hand if you want to speak. Pei, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Vanessa, thank you for inviting me to co-host, co-lead the BA group. I think those of you who know me know that I actually love business analysis. It's a very, very interesting topic. So I'm so glad to be here and to help make business analysis more important as a topic within Salesforce, not just a hard topic. This is what they might call a soft topic, but it is really, really key. So I have had, I've always been in project delivery for about 30 years now. I feel really old. The first part of my career was in the Microsoft space, and the latter part in the Salesforce space. Ended up being a project manager, which is where I am at the moment. But when I was in Microsoft space, I did a whole lot more hands-on stuff like being a data architect, solutions architect, business analyst, and a consultant. So I know what the topic is about, and I know that it's very transferable. So if you are a really good business analyst in one CRM, it is quite easy to transfer. So then I decided to stay as the project manager, currently being an interim delivery manager for a partner out in Portugal. So I also wrote this book, production at the moment, writing my writing the second one. So more to come in that news. With that, I will hand it over back to Vanessa.
All right. Well, first, if folks want to liberally use heart and clap emojis to welcome Pay, I would appreciate it. And also keep those hearts and claps going as we introduce our special guest speaker today, Tracy Greene. Tracy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Tracy Greene. My pronouns are Tracy or they, them. If you ever have any questions, please ask me. I'm always open. If you're ever in the question, if you lean towards a masculine, it's much better than me. I'm a managing partner and founder of GreenePowered. I'm a Salesforce registered partner. I'm 6 times certified. I have about 5.5 years of experience with Salesforce. Before that, I have about 20 years experience as a software engineer that I brought with me to my Salesforce career. And I'm also currently an AI trainer for Einstein for Flow product. And that's my LinkedIn if you want to connect with me. And I've worked as a project manager in the gaming industry. I worked as a software engineer in games. I worked for NASA twice. I worked in robotics. I started off as a Salesforce admin. I've been a consultant, a solution architect, and a Salesforce practice lead. And I'm in Santa Monica, California. And my dog, Freddie, who you might not be able to see, but he's right there.
Amazing. All right, Tracy, I'm going to stop sharing and give you an opportunity to share your slides and get us kicked off on why we should start asking.
Give me 1 second to get my screen. 1 second. Just make sure I have the right one. Okay, I feel I have to do this first. 1 second. I apologize. I think that we'd have this down by now, right? Screen 2. There we go. Let me go to. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, again.
Okay, awesome. So this is I call this talk solution for scale, from saying yes to asking why. And GreenePowered is my company, so let me just click on to the next thing. So why should you listen to me? As I said, my name is Tracy, my pronouns. I started as a junior admin through 2019, and I moved my way through junior admin to solution architect, all the way right to project, owning my own practice. Because before I got to Salesforce, I have about 20 years software engineering, but it wasn't just software. I wasn't just writing code. What I was doing, I was studying software engineer, which if you don't understand the differences, I'll explain it, right? Software engineering is about like asking, right? It's a business analysis part. It's a design part. It's about how do we root cause analysis, all these things around actually the code. It's not just writing code, and not to say anything's wrong with just writing code, because that's a huge part of it. But there's this other part of software engineering that I just fell in love with, and it's just asking the whys. And so that really just helped me get to where I am today. I'm a Salesforce subject matter expert. I'm customer care obsessed, and I talk about that because for me, this topic is so important to me because I care about my customers. I'm not going to let them just add a field. I'm not going to, right? I will fight this to the death, and people, that's my thing. So I also coach Salesforce admins in this kind of topics, because for me, I believe that we're a BA group, but really what this talk is focusing on, this is not necessarily the beginning of a project. We know we have to discoveries. We all know this. And let me put this so I can see myself. I need to see myself. It's how I think. So we all right, we know the beginning of a project. We know we have to we have discoveries on the calendar. But this is more of a topic of someone just said, hey, I need you to add one thing. And so a lot of times an admin doesn't really have the support, or they don't know what to do. They just said, okay, let me add a field. So this really is a topic of, from an admin perspective, but in my feeling, everyone should be a BA, right? I don't feel like a BA is great. I think BAs are really important, and I understand this group is for BAs, but even if you're an admin or you're assistant, whatever you are, the BA part is included. So I don't necessarily distinguish to it. So I just want to say kind of groundness in what the conversation is about. So I will start from there. And this part, I also want to say is interactive. So I have some slides, but I definitely want to ask questions and things. So please feel free. Besides, whoever, I'm not sure what. Do you have a question or perfect? Okay. So, right, someone asks you for a field. What can go wrong? Has that ever happened? Or, right, it's just a field after all. So I had some clients. They have two admins. I help coach them. I work with them all the time. And someone said, we need a field. We just want to, they sell classes, right? They have training courses and they want to be able to get them for free. And right now, what was happening was they said, all we want to do is we want to market for free. Okay, great. Drop down. Is it a paid course or free course? That should be it. What could go wrong? Let me see if I'm gonna go back to, sorry, I just want to make sure I don't remember what could go wrong, right? So they said, this is a field. So I asked them questions like, okay, well, who's going to use this field? And we started asking, okay, well, we have the sales reps who actually sell the course. Okay, well, the training people actually do the training. Okay, well, who actually charges? Oh, accounting charges. Well, why do you need this field? Oh, well, what happens is we give away these courses for free, and our clients are getting an invoice because our accounting department doesn't know when not to invoice them. Okay, great. Okay, so it's just a field, right? Just add a field. Great. Well, who's allowed to say who's a free course? Oh, well, it has to be like the VP of sales in that county. So it was just a field turned into a field with an approval process and a whole new process change. Because if we didn't do that, we just said anyone can say, right? Anyone can do a free course, then how are they going to be able to track what anyone can give away? So it was this idea of who asking these questions, who. And so I kind of wanted to say that story. So it was a really important story, right? It was just a field. But in the end, it took us about a month and a half to get down discovery, asking people. We had to have like meetings with more people. And the more we found out, the more we found out, right? The more we asked, the more we found out. And that's really what the idea is. Like, it might just be one person asking for a field, but if you don't understand all these questions, we don't know. And so I'm gonna be on the next slide. So it's really the art of discovery. And again, I talk about, we all know what discovery looks like at the beginning of a project or a big chunk of it. But what happens when someone says, I want a field, I want to give away free trainings, what do you need to do? Well, we have to have a discovery just like anything else. And these are very important, these are kind of the main questions that I ask. And obviously, right, we all know a question leads to another question. We're not asking for answers, we're looking for asking the next why. So I always ask, what is the problem, right? For that example was they have, sometimes they give away free courses and they have to be able to mark that on the training course. Then we asked who was involved. It was a sales rep, the training, and it was accounting. And then why now question, excuse me, the why now question was really important for them because they were charging customers that shouldn't be charged and they were getting pretty upset. And so that was a really important thing. So it's like, right, because it could be why now? Oh, we just want to do that. If the now wasn't as important, the now tells you how the priority of this project. That's how it is, right? So I know what the problem is. I know it's involved. The why now tells me that this is a really important thing to actually focus on, because I don't know about you guys, but we have like 15 different requests come in every day. So if you're getting all those multiple requests, not only do you have to ask what the problem is, who's involved, but the why now really helps you focus it. And so really those are the kind of questions. And with that, I know we're gonna talk about later that Vanessa has 10 questions you actually ask. But this one is really, for me, these 3 questions really get me started, because there's always more question like, what's the problem? And for me, I found that usually people asking don't even know what their own problem is. They think they're solving one thing. And what I try my best not to do is, I'm a solution architect. I know what Salesforce can do. I try not to solution when I'm asking these questions, because obviously we know a pick list, a approval process in the end, but it doesn't matter. It's really understanding the problem. And by getting to know what the problem is, it just opens up for these questions, and that's where the business analysis comes in, right? That's our job, is a process and what it is. And then also who's involved. It really gives you this idea of how big it is. For the company I'm working at now, they have a thing where if more than two departments are involved, we need to bring it up to another department, because we can't just like make changes. So these kind of questions just really get down to it. And again, going back to the why now, it could be so many different questions, but the why now is going to lead you back to what the problem is. And so I just kind of want to open up the floor right now. Does anyone have this example where someone has asked for a field and if it went off the rails, or how you handled it? Does anyone want to share their experience? Vanessa?
I'm always happy to
I
share mine.
appreciate.
So I had an experience fairly recently where it was, hey, we just all we need is we're updating this process a little bit. We just need a few fields. Just need a few fields. And when we got to the what is the problem and what, stop giving me exactly what you're looking for. Tell me what it is that you're trying to get at the end of the day. And also the why now was also helpful. We ended up having to actually re-architect their whole process and create new custom objects, reparent an object, and it just so that they could get the information that they needed. And those fields that they're like, we just need a pick list that like lives here. We're like, nope. If you want to actually get the insights that you're looking for at the end of the day, we wouldn't have gotten there if we had just literally they'd given us a spreadsheet and just wanted us to kind of like, okay, look, here's that field that you asked for. But when we got down to it, we got them a better solution and something that was more maintainable in the long run for our admins.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think right, so good, like really good points. I always ask, like, what do you want to do with it? Like, right? That's the question. What do you want to do with the data? Do you want to report it? If you can't, like, if it's like, what are we doing with the end data? And so it's a really great way of working backwards. And just imagine if you just would have said yes to that pick list. Like if you would have said, sure, yep, it's just a pick list. Let me just add that field. Then what would happen? And that's kind of what I like to talk about is like, sure, right, you can add a field, but what is the backlash? How are you going to find out? How long would it take for you to understand that they didn't get what they needed? Another example is I'm working for a company and they said, oh, we just added a few new stages to our opportunity process and things aren't working. Oh, okay. Like, well, why did you do it? Like, what, who needs to know about it? Like, what's the purpose and how do you, like, what are the old processes? And again, they thought I was just adding to them. All they did is add 2 new stages into the pipeline, status. And we had to unravel it. Again, we had to ask who wants to know, why is it happening? Is it for reporting? And then what are you going to do with all those opportunities that use the old stages? How are you going to report on that? So it's this idea of like, right, it's never just a field. But sometimes it could just be a field, but it really is the important part is understanding the why. If you don't understand the why, yes, Sophia, please join the conversation.
Oh, hi. Actually, I have a very good example of that, of all this understanding the where the end user is coming from, and it's when they ask you about a report, when they come and say, "Oh, it's just a report. I just need a list of something." But when you realize that report and then you go deeper on what is that report about, what they want to show. So you have to move 1,000 objects, go through 1,000 processes to try to gather that information. I used to do the a business analysis for to sell parts of a software, and we had to do these reports, and it wasn't on it was very important to dig in this kind of I just need to, because from selling a little report of, I don't know, listing clients' names, we ended up selling reports that will take hours of engineers and developers to try to gather all that information. So it is really important to try to very deep of going very deep on what kind of information that they are talking about.
Thank you. Has anyone experienced getting a stakeholder and they don't want to tell you why? They're just like, give me my field. Has anyone want to share an experience like that? I know I have, where they're just like, I know for me, what I've done in the past, and this is probably a little bit more aggressive than you need to go, but in the past, like I asked the why, and someone's like, I just need it, just give it to me, and I refused to do it, and I was a consultant, and they wanted it anyway, so I sent them a DocuSign document stating the reason, like what they wanted, what they asked for, and all the questions I had, and they were like, they just bypassed it. And I said, if they're happy to sign that for future use for us, and like what you go down 5 years from now, we can understand why you wanted it, then I'd be happy to add it. And of course they didn't sign it. And of course that's probably way over the board, but sometimes you have to do that, right? I'm very like, I get very like, I will not just give you a field, because we know what happens, right? We know 5 years down the line, you can leave these orgs just like in, not only just tech debt, it's just more of like, people don't understand why. And then it just gets moved on. Oh, it's always that way. And you don't understand. Anyone have any experiences with someone not giving them the why, or the pushback on the why and what they did to get around it?
We do
My friend
have,
Vanessa.
I was just going to say, we have a couple of examples in the chat. I don't know if folks
Yes.
want to actually come on camera,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
can't
happy
see
to
the
read them out.
chats. Yeah, so
let me bring. So we have I want to say Branda has said, yes, we had one that seemed simple in the beginning, and then after 3 rounds of asking questions, we figured out that the process shouldn't even be used anymore because it had been sunsetted a couple of years prior. And I think that speaks really well to making sure that we get the documentation for the why, and anytime that field or something changes, also document that so we can always go back and understand what the why is. So thank you for sharing that, Branda. And looks like we have Eric who has something.
Eric, please.
Yeah, so as I put in the chat as well, but we're busy designing just an intake form, and it was one of those where our stakeholders, they just asked for a field, and it was kind of a weird field. So we just started to dig deeper, and as we continued to dig deeper, we found out that they were tracking outside of Salesforce 2 other Excel spreadsheets, and we're talking 30 to 50 fields on their own, half of which we were already tracking in Salesforce. And so it was one of those to where once and of course, we're halfway through building all of this out for them, and we are just now learning about this after meetings after meetings after meetings. So it was one of those, again, we found out by digging deeper, and then we were able to set up a better way for everything to automate and track within Salesforce to save them what I'm guessing is going to be hours of data tracking and report running and duplication of everything.
Thank you. That's a really great example, right? Like, again, it goes back to a lot of people don't know what they're asking for, and it's our job to help get it out there. Like we know the questions. I'll get to Deb in 1 second. I have also another client who they have a team and they have project managers, and the project managers are like, oh, we want every department to give us their why. We want them to like give us all the things. And I was like, hey, a lot of people don't even know how to explain what they want. You really have to have that business analyst questions, at least for them to fill out a form, because really asking the questions lets people understand what they even asked for. Deb, you want to help share what you have experienced?
Sure, yeah. So I was first attuned to this from Jody Herbeck's book, which I'm sure many people on this call will have read, that the problem with check boxes, which is what I put in the comment, is that you can't validate them. So if it's not checked, does that mean it's really not checked, or did it just oopsie doodle not get checked? So that's just a little helpful hint. I think there's probably lots of useful ways to use checkboxes if they're like not on page layouts and are automated and like doing validation in the background. But if you're asking someone to check a checkbox, you'll never know if it's not checked on purpose or not.
That's great. I think that's really good. Also, another thing is I will not ever, but like it would take a really lot for you to convince me to do a multi-pick list, like for report all that stuff. So when someone's like, oh, like that's a problem too. Sometimes people think they know what they want, so they come up with a solution. Hey, I need a field that's a multi-pick list, and you have to understand like, oh, why do you need that? Then you get down to the why, Rodrigo, please share with us.
Well, hello to you all. I mean, thank you. Yeah, for me, I mean, it has been way too difficult because I'm the one guy army of Salesforce in my company. So I'm the VA, I'm the admin, I'm the developer, and well, you know, I'm alone. And whenever you said, you know, we gotta, I have to ask why you want this field in particular. They feel like I'm just giving them the ball, so they you
Yeah.
don't want to work it, so maybe you're asking because you don't want to do it at this field, but it sums up pretty much I'm being the bad guy because I don't want to put the field they want. So I told them it's not the difficult or the easy to put the field, because the thing is, why should we put the field and what solution it's gonna bring by you just having there and on the object. So that's pretty much what I wanted to tell.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. You brought a really great point, right? Like I said, this presentation kind of was leaned towards admins like yourself, or solo admins, people that don't really have, like, when you have a BA, like, people expect you to ask the why, right? That's your job. My job is to ask you the why, but when you're coming in without that, it's really, maybe it's like a cultural thing too. And maybe it's not asking the why, maybe it's explaining to people that, like, right, the reason why we're asking the why. Maybe it's not just, hey, I need to ask you why because it's may affect this and this. I know you, we bring it to your solution. Like, maybe it's just kind of like, right, validating. We know we need a solution. We want to know what the right solution is. And that's why I'm asking you the why, so we can get to the right scalable solution. Cindy, do you want to go next? And then Vanessa, how much time do we have? I just want to make sure that we're good on time. We're good on time.
I think we have like another 13 minutes that you can have.
Perfect. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Cindy, please.
Well, I think it's just the user is trying to give you their solution, and it's not their job to provide the solution. They need to give you their requirements, that they need to tell you what their problem is that they're trying to solve. And it's our job to provide the best solution.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to.
That is a great, I would say so I think that's a really great point, Cindy. And here's how I get around that, because everybody wants to be heard. So I never tell people, don't give me a solution, right? Because people just want to be heard. People get really excited. They like, oh, I saw this on Automate This, or I read it in a blog. They just want to be heard. So I let them come to me and tell me what they think it should be. And then from there, I start asking questions like, hey, that's a really good idea, but here's why I can do it. Here's why. Because sometimes they do have the right solution, but really including them. And it reminds me, like, I raised my nephew, and I just remember, like, my nephew always, as long as I told him, like, I validated what he wanted, he never asked me twice. Like, right, I just said, oh, let me hear what you have to say. Let's let him be heard all the time. And so whenever I said, so for my thing as a consultant, I say yes 90% of the time, because when I say no to something, people know I'm not doing it to say no. I'm not, because I'm the aunt or whatever you want to say, right? Or I'm the boss. It's because I really, like, I'm the trusted advisor. So if I let people be able to say what they want to say, I built that into it. So I totally get your saying, but they should not be coming. Like, that's not their job. Don't come with solutions. But how do we do that in a way where we're not like, just don't tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. I think that's like why this is a soft skill, not a hard skill, honestly.
Agreed.
All right, Jess.
Yeah, I'd love to add that sometimes I'll know, like, yeah, you probably, they come with a solution. You don't want that field. You don't want that multi-select pick list. Instead of telling them that's not the right way to solve it, I'll say, oh, hey, I love what you're trying to achieve. So you're doing the solution. You're going to want to report on it, right? And you're probably going to want to be able to make some decisions. Are they in or outside of their parameters? And if you're a BA who's really familiar with the business and the process, you can foresee some of this. They want to track it because they want to report on it. They want to make actionable business decisions, and you can see into the future how that might appear on a reporter dashboard and what other supporting configuration you might need to make for that. So to ask questions about, would you like to see this last month a few months ago, change over time. Ask the questions that inform you that the solution needs to be different or more complex than what they thought of, and then say, oh, I would love to give that to you. Can you give me a little time to come back with something that I think will give you all of this? So you're not saying no to what they brought to you, but you're asking questions that allow you to determine if, 90% of the time, what they solution for you is not going to be what you end up giving them, but you don't have to tell them no. You can just ask the qualifying questions that determine it might be different than what they expect. And instead of telling them it's different, just say, okay, thank you. Can I come back in a couple of days and show you a mock-up of something in a sandbox that looks like what you're asking for? Sometimes they don't need to know how you're going to solve it and that it's different than what they asked for. Just within reason, the amount of effort you're putting in to give them that example, you can say, I understand what you're asking for and I can achieve it. And once I think they're validated by that, it doesn't matter as much how you go about it. And if it's different than how they thought you were going to go about it.
Yeah, that's really good insight. Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to talk about, like with my nephew, like, right, is always giving him like the idea, the chance to tell me what his idea was and not saying he was wrong. So it's the same kind of thing. I really appreciate that. I think with that, gonna move on a little bit. Just understand that, again, going back to, right, it might just be a field. It might just be probably not a checkbox, probably not a multi-pick list, but it could just be a pick list. But the idea is really understanding. So 5 years from now, future Tracy is gonna be able to like thank me for like understanding why. And then it just helps the documentation, it helps everything. It helps you not, I'm not gonna say justify it, but like there is a justification of like why you did something. Because sometimes business needs change. And you can say, hey, we made that decision because we needed some kind of band-aid, right, to get to the next spot. But at least you know why. And so that's all we have right for now. Obviously, we have more things to talk about on this meeting. But for me, if you want to continue the conversation, there's a QR code that will help you get to my LinkedIn. And I really appreciate the time and everyone listening. I'm going to throw it back to Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Yay. If we can throw some emojis, claps, whatever, hearts, I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Tracy, for sharing your knowledge. And I'm going to go pick up the screen share. Cool. So thanks again, Tracy. And we're going to keep on with the conversation. I think it's a good conversation from Tracy's session to I recently I'm just making sure. All right, good. I'm not on mute. All right. I recently wrote a Salesforce Ben article. And actually, I'm going to be doing a couple of sessions at Dreamforce in regards to this because I think it's a really, really important topic. So I'm glad that we're focusing on it today. I've got 10 questions for admins to ask first when somebody says, can you add a field or can you just add a field? So what I wanted to do here is go through some of these questions and all right, I think we're good. Sorry, I heard some background noise again. Not a background noise. So if folks want to speak up, I'm not like running a presentation or anything right now. Mostly just kind of throwing these out for discussion, and mostly what I'm curious about from you guys, and if you want to throw it in the chat or if you want to talk about it, is what else you would add to this list, because I don't think that 10 is necessarily complete. I think everything just, it depends. So it can depend on your situation, it depends on your organization, it depends on complexity and compliance and all these things. But just like Tracy had those, high level questions that are really kind of the start when you start drilling down, I would kind of think of this as maybe that next level of how do you drill down even further to make sure that what you're building is the right thing. So I've got it kind of broken down into 4 different sections. So my first section is business value, where first, what specific business requirement does this field address? So we want to make sure that a field is the best solution. And so understanding what the requirements are, like that example that I gave to Tracy earlier, a field wasn't going to actually cover the requirement that my stakeholder had. There were certain reports that they wanted to pull and certain insights that they wanted to be able to to gain from what they thought would be solved by a field. And we realized that that wasn't the answer. So I think addressing the business requirement and figuring out, do we need a field? Is a field really the thing? Is the first part. The next question I had was, who are the primary users or stakeholders of this field? Again, kind of taking it back to what Tracy said, like if there are two different teams that would use this, making sure they're on the same page as to what it's called, on how it's going to be populated, on which team owns it, I think is going to be important. So who are the primary users or stakeholders? Maybe one of them already has that field in there.
Automatically will log from this checklist if logged for violation.
Yeah. Sorry. And then third one, how will this field be used in business processes or workflows? So how does it fit into the bigger picture for, so that you can help design it for maximum impact and usability? I think once you understand where a field is going to fit into an overall business process, it's not just going to be one of those fields that I think Elements did a report pretty recently that over 50% of custom fields don't even get used. Like they get requested, they get created, and then just kind of go into a field graveyard. And I think when you ask questions like, how would this field be used in business processes or workflows? And you understand at what point in a process it needs to be filled out, or how it's going to be filled out, or which team or who is going to fill it out. You can ensure that the information that'll get in there will actually get in there. So bottom line with these first three questions is, don't build something that won't bring any value. That's where you start saying no, or why, or but, or asking whatever questions you need so you can get to the better solution to address the user's needs. So I will throw it out there to folks. Does anybody have any other questions that you would ask as far as getting to the business value? And maybe this is fairly comprehensive, but I am open if folks have any additional questions. In the meantime, I'll move on to the next one. The next group of questions, I would say, would be kind of my data integrity questions. So, and again, you could have additional categories or additional questions. This is like, again, I don't think this is necessarily comprehensive. Actually, I think when I first put the article out, one question that I thought was great was, does this field already exist? Since that happens so often, I don't think we talk about that enough. So even just checking the system to see if something like this already exists, or if it already has the same name even, I think is another kind of good thing. But in my data integrity questions, I had, what data should be captured or stored in this field? There's a lot of different kind of custom field types to choose from. So whittling it down to the data is important for the format and consistency. Are there any existing systems or processes that this field should integrate with? We want to make sure that it's not going to be out of sync on day one, and where the source of truth is going to live. So I think that's important to consider, particularly if there is an integration involved. Well, that's gonna take a little bit longer. So, but ensuring that and asking those questions, I think, is really important to ensure that the data flows smoothly. And then 6, are there any data migration requirements for this field? So like somebody had mentioned that there were like 30 spreadsheets and fields that people were tracking everywhere. Well, if we do build that field in Salesforce, let's say the field is the answer. Are we going to have to migrate all of those? Are we going to have to do some data cleanup so that the data is consistent? So thinking about that will impact how long it's going to take to actually deliver the solution for your stakeholders, and would add a lot of potential complexity to it. So I will pause there, and I'm going to take a look at the chat. Tali Scott asking why multiple times to dig deeper into the business value. Yeah, that's the whole. Another comment I'd gotten on this article was, well, yeah, when I ask why, all they say is because I said so, and that's where you can kind of do the little, treat them like a toddler and ask them why 5 different times so that you can get to it. But I do think it's important that, to a certain extent, you do have to be a bit stubborn. I don't know if it's DocuSign levels of, but I admire that, Tracy. But getting to that, as a gatekeeping measure, as the keeper of the system, to keep it healthy and to keep it well documented and maintainable, we need to understand what the business value is and make sure that we're spending our time on work that will bring us business value. So we've got Rodrigo says, sometimes the field exists but remains unused between stakeholders because it's called something differently. Yep, all the time. Deb's got, how will the field be populated? So is it manual entry, API, data load, etc.? How will it be maintained and who's responsible? That I think is hugely important. Yep. And you can Tenna's got ask how, in what ways will this field benefit the process? I think that's also important. Make sure it's not just somebody like, oh, they got really mad at somebody one day and so they thought that a field would solve it, but it's for such like a fringe use case that it actually won't like really provide value that would that would balance out the maintenance required to keep that field in the system. Because every time we add something to the field, that's something we're gonna have to maintain forever. More questions we've got. Let's see, how are other teams doing this process? How many teams will be using the field? I think that's important. Will all the fields have a value, or is it only addressing a subset of records? Great question. Are there any is there any field that exists currently which can solve this purpose? Exactly. It's does this field already exist? Awesome. I love the conversation, guys. I'm going to move to the next section. Keep it coming, because I threw in 10, frankly, because, 10 sounds better on an article, like 10 reasons. But there's more. I mean, we're business analysts and we want to get to as much information as we can so that we can ensure that the information that we're providing to our stakeholders, the things that we're building, are useful. And we also want to make sure that they are well architected. And part of that is security and reliability. So there's two other questions that I have in here, which is, are there any data privacy or security considerations for this field? Like, is it PII? Personally identifiable information? That's important. Does it have to go through any regulatory? Is it going to be audited? Those are important things to consider. And also thinking about who's going to access it, who should have access to things. It is almost kind of one of those things where when your stakeholders aren't generally, at least mine, don't tend to think about who should actually be able to see all these new things that we're building. And as business analysts, I feel like it's one of those things that we have to, every single time we take on any sort of configuration, we have to be able to ask those security and user experience design questions that to make sure that what we're delivering makes sense within our organization. Then we've got 8. Are there any performance or scalability considerations for this field? Now, I don't know that that's necessarily a question that we would ask the stakeholder, but I think it's important that it's a question that we consider when we're trying to think about how much new data is going to come into the org. So, I'm definitely not the most technical person in the room, but when we're talking about the data, like, we're thinking about the impacts it might have on page load times. Are there going to be impacts to automations? Any field audit tracking on the field could have an impact on the org. So thinking about how often this field is going to change, how much of this field are we going to have, is an important consideration. And do we still have Tracy here?
I'm here.
Tracy, what do you think about when it comes to performance and scalability when you're building something in Salesforce?
I talked about this before, right? I always think about that first. So again, it's one of those things that I always have in mind. It's like the user experience, reliability, and security. These questions are just built in for me, because if you have to think about who's going to see it, or reliability. Like, you have to, they can't be afterthoughts. I've had so many times where we build this out and then I'm like, oh, someone shouldn't see that, or like you say, it was it's a field that not everyone can see. If you went to the end to figure that out, you're going to build the wrong solution. You're gonna have to go back in there. So always think about that first. It's just always in the forefront for me.
Awesome. Cool. I'm gonna go back to the chat, and we've got design for the majority use cases. Don't overcomplicate the system for corner cases. Absolutely. I have certainly gotten I've had a bad day, and so I need a field now so that I don't have the same bad day again. And sometimes it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's just. Um, so yes, 1,001 questions to ask before adding a field. Sometimes that's what it takes. So how to reconcile the overlap of considerations between architect and BA, especially for security setup. Tracy, you might be.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I'll hop in there. I feel like, I feel like, and this is where it is, I feel like BA is your job to tell me the whys, and then it's my job to take it the next step as a solution architect to give you how it's going to be done, right? I would never say, don't tell me how to do your job, like how to do my job, but that's really, I feel like that's where the line kind of is between the two, where, right, as a BA, you can say, here's what I need my security things, and you can give your opinion, but it's really up to in the end, it's the architect who kind of comes up with that solution. That answers the question.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I love the idea. A BA, and this is when I was taking my Scrum Master certification, I did ask where in a Scrum team a BA falls. And my Agile coach said a BA is part of the dev team. So they should have a voice in the room when you're coming up with solutions, but they wouldn't ultimately be responsible for the solution. And I totally agree with you, Tracy. That is the how should be the architect. Okay. More potential questions. Does the field contain sensitive or personally identifiable information? Yep, such as social security numbers, credit card numbers. Yep, always important to ask. And you might not even know. Let's say it's an industry you're not super familiar with. So making sure that you can speak out to a compliance person and understand. And are you tracking that stuff within the field? There are actually, I sat in on a panel at Tahoe Dreamin'. There are actually, places in the back end where you can track that information within Salesforce on how sensitive the data is. Are you tracking that stuff within your system? That's important stuff, just like the descriptions. It's important stuff to keep historical documentation and accurate ongoing documentation of the things that you're building in that system.
So, and that's a really good point. Like, I do some stuff where it's really highly sensitive, and some people get audited. So if you're not in there, if it's your job, right, if you don't mark it as PPI, like that's one of the things, like you can mark it as sensitive, that's kind of thing that we have to know. So when you're asking these questions, you know how to build it out. Because later on, like again, I'm not saying like 5 years out, if you get audited, it can come back to you like, well, why was that information not gathered? And so this kind of helps just that kind of thinking.
Totally. And actually, I know I wrote my own dang article, but another thing that I think it's important to consider is, in the age of AI, is this field going to be used by any AI in the system? Are we building? Are we getting any insights from it from the AI? Because if so, we have to be able to document that in the system as well, so that if, let's say, we deprecate the field down the line, we know that the AI will be impacted. Some more questions. Is it time sensitive? What's the projected lifetime of the field? Oh, yes. The whole we just need a field for the holiday season, and then it stays there forever. So how many eyes will see this field or use this field in a report? What's the impact if I don't give you the field? Yes. I think cost of delay is also a good one. Yeah, awesome. Great questions. All right, so the last set of questions we've got is, are there any reporting or analytics needed related to this field? And are there any UI or UX considerations for this field? Of course, I think having understanding the insights that they're looking to get from it will help you understand if what they're proposing when they say, can I just have a field, will get them there, or if maybe more needs to be done, like that one stakeholder I had that really needed a completely different architected solution. But I think also sometimes they do kind of have a vision in their mind of what they think it'll look like. And to Tracy's point, I don't think that I know that sometimes it can be, oh, don't tell me what the solution is. But I think it's important to make our stakeholders feel heard, but also set the expectation that it might not look exactly like that, but I do want to hear how you envision it, because maybe they do have some good ideas on it. And having a voice, I think, is important, and making them feel like you're listening to them is important. So that's my 10 questions. Any other out there? Pay, do you want to throw in anything on how maybe you would approach some of this?
To be to be honest, I was half listening because I was promoting the event outside, telling everybody else they should be here. But you know, there are so many more questions because there's always follow-on questions from these top 10. So I think having the top 10 here is a really good starting point already, because you
All right.
couldn't finish the list, I don't think.
Well, yeah, I feel like you said, right? Like I always say, I don't ask a question for an answer. I ask a question so I can ask the next question. I feel like that's the key, right? I don't like 10 is a number that we have to have some kind of number. 100, like probably not like 100, 101, but like there's a thing. But until you get to the why, you have to keep asking the question. I feel like how many licks does it take to get to the middle of this, Tootsie Roll Pop? But I don't think you put a number on it. But it's asking the whys for that to find out more whys.
Yep. And you know what? You could still ask 1,000 questions, and this field is still going to probably evolve over the course of the company. That's how business moves, and it's just we want to get it to a point where we feel comfortable that what we're delivering will add value, and certainly more value than it'll take to keep maintaining it, and that it'll be used and loved. And when it's not used and loved, we know, and we can deprecate in the future. But all right. Thanks, everybody. I'm actually going to start moving into our Salesforce BA news and opportunities. I think it was a great conversation. So I'm going to just touch on a few news items for our community, and then we'll end the recording and open it up to chit chat if folks want to hang out and celebrate or talk about stuff that's going on with them. So in Salesforce BA news and opportunities, first is some sad news on my part. I was laid off last week, but I have felt the absolute joy of really being lifted by this community over the course of the last week. A lot of folks have been sending me messages and trying to connect me with recruiters and job opportunities. So I figure, in just kind of, the social butterfly that I am, but also in an effort to give back and make some lemonades out of lemons. If anybody wants to come job hunt with me, if you're looking for a new opportunity, I've got a Google form. If somebody could, actually, I think I could probably paste it. Oh, thank you, Pay. Pay's got it in the chat. Feel free to fill that out. My eyes are the only ones that are going to see it. And if I see anything along my job hunt that looks like it's a good fit for you, I will reach out and try and connect you. But, was it Misery Loves Company? But September only. But we're giving it a shot, and hopefully I'll have good news by the next session. We'll see. Okay, so next. So I was a little hesitant about this one just because there is a cost associated with this, but it's a really good opportunity, so I'm throwing it out there. Clicked is a learning platform. They've, for over 2 years now, they've had a partnership with Salesforce, where Salesforce will actually subsidize them. There is initially, Salesforce was subsidizing Click basically to try and close the skills gap within the Salesforce ecosystem, particularly after the pandemic boom. Now there's a gap as far as the data and AI. Everybody knows Salesforce is really pushing data in AI. So Click is doing a 4-month program, and it's in partnership with Salesforce and in partnership with IBM Skills Build. And yes, it costs $295, but the value that you get from it, I think, particularly because the certification voucher is included, and that's $200 anyway, is worth it. I am one of the coaches on it. If you want to sign up with my referral link, you are welcome to. That's on the QR code, or don't. That's fine too. But mostly, I just want to share it as an opportunity. It's one of those things that it'll give you I think, some good opportunities to kind of learn like shadow sessions from people. There's going to be some career sessions, and I always find the clicked experiences to be a little bit chaotic sometimes, but always a good way to almost kind of like role play in a safe space where you can't, you're not actually going to screw up an org. It's just you get to play, and if it gets screwed up, it gets screwed up, and it's not a big deal. But you will learn along the way and learn vocabulary and see what other people do, and I do find that valuable. So I wanted to throw that out there. Also, for whatever reason, it's not on the agenda anymore. It was yesterday, but I think that they're still updating the Dreamforce agenda. But I will be hosting a Salesforce business analyst group, not virtual, in person at Dreamforce. So it should be in the community networking forest in Moscone West, 2 to 2:45 on September 18th. So for folks that are interested in business analysis, or you just want to hang out, say hi, talk to other BAs, support other BAs. We'll be there for 45 minutes taking over, and I'm really excited to get everybody together in a room in person. So if you're going to be at Dreamforce, would love to see you. Please come say hi. And then lastly, calls for speakers. Again, while I'm kind of rambling on here, I think it's important that one of the big missions of this group is that we want to champion business analysis within the Salesforce ecosystem. And I think really any Salesforce professional that's been doing this for a while understands that foundationally business analysis makes for successful, like good business analysis makes for successful Salesforce projects. So the more that we can champion business analysis in this ecosystem, the better. And part of that is speaking. So we have a few conferences that are currently accepting calls for speakers. Most of them are international right now, but I like to consider ourselves an international group. So Soul Dreaming, Pay, how'd you like Soul? You were just there?
It's amazing. But I didn't know about this. Otherwise, I would make all the kids come with me in October. But yeah, it's a great place to go if you get a chance to do it.
Call for speakers is still open, Pay. You could still do it. So there's Soul Dreamin', there's Wit Dreamin', which is in India, West Africa Dreamin' in Nigeria. There's Mexico Dreamin'. That's the first time they're going to do that in Mexico. In Merida, I think it's on the Yucatan Peninsula. And that one closes September 10th. The other ones I didn't see end dates for. And then actually, we've got one virtual one that I thought was noteworthy. Jen Lee, who works at Salesforce as an admin evangelist, runs the Automate This show that gets put on Salesforce's social media on YouTube. And Jen is looking for folks, if you've done a cool automation that you would like to showcase to your fellow Salesforce professionals and admins, there's that link is in in the, I don't know if somebody could throw that one in the chat. That one's a little bit more complicated. Thank you, Pay. I appreciate it. Cool. Or come speak here. If I can get the slide. All right, so there's the QR code. Pay will put the link into the chat, but for folks that are interested in speaking to our group, I know that there's a few folks that have already expressed interest. Pay and I have started putting together what our calendar is going to look like, I think for the next year, because Pay is really keeping me in line here and keeping me honest. So so certainly let us know, especially if they're BA topics. I mean, really only if they're BA topics. Sorry, don't come at me with your, how to write best practices in Apex. I support you in that journey, but it would be a challenging one for here. And then next event, we've got September 24th, 2024. Pay, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Me? You just flung this on me. No, actually, so our next event, we were thinking that it'd be a little bit more networking because that was one of the core pillars of this particular group. The format, I think TBD. I have some thoughts. I have some ideas. We're just going to brainstorm a little bit more. It's going to be fun. You're going to meet other people and, just have fun. That's it.
Awesome. And we'll be doing that one with the more UK friendly time. We're really trying to make it so that we can reach as many Salesforce BAs globally as we can. So it'll be early for folks on the west coast of the US, but a more reasonable hour in London. And with that, I Wow, right up, almost perfectly on time. I want to first thank you all. You are welcome to stick around if you guys want to chit chat after this. But other than that, I will say thank you everybody so much for coming. We hope to see you next month. And I think we're going to end the recording here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me.